Introduction. The seven archangels who stand before the throne. Across sacred texts, mystical traditions, and theological reflection, there exists a recurring vision of seven exalted beings who stand closest to the divine presence. They are not merely messengers, nor distant symbols, but living principles through which divine order, mercy, wisdom, and care are made active within creation. Known collectively as the seven archangels, they function as guardians of balance between heaven and humanity, each entrusted with a distinct responsibility essential to the continuation of cosmic and moral order. This work explores these seven archangels not as abstract names, but as enduring forces, defenders, revealers, healers, illuminators, restorers, refiners, and redeemers. Together, they form a complete spiritual architecture, addressing conflict, ignorance, suffering, confusion, alienation, distortion, and despair. What follows is a journey through their identities, histories, and purposes, revealing how each archangel fulfills a role that no other can replace. Before entering the full chapters, the following brief introductions present the seven archangels and their core domains. Archangel Michael, guardian of divine order. Michael is the chief of the archangels and the defender of heavenly order. His name, meaning "who is like God," stands as a challenge against pride and rebellion. He is the commander of divine forces, the protector against chaos, and the enforcer of righteous order. Where rebellion arises, Michael stands. Archangel Gabriel, herald of revelation. Gabriel is the voice of divine will, the messenger of turning points in sacred history. His role is revelation, announcing what must be known, and ensuring that divine intention is understood. Through Gabriel, heaven speaks clearly to humanity. Archangel Raphael, healer and guide. Raphael is the archangel of healing, restoration, and safe passage. His presence is quiet and companionable, guiding humanity through illness, danger, and transition. He restores what is broken and walks beside those who suffer. Archangel Uriel, light of understanding. Uriel is the illuminator of divine wisdom and cosmic order. He reveals hidden truths, explains judgment before it arrives, and brings clarity to mystery. His light prepares humanity to understand consequence and responsibility. Archangel Chamuel, restorer of the heart. Chamuel governs love, compassion, and inner peace. His work heals emotional wounds, restores broken relationships, and realigns the heart with harmony. He ensures that divine order remains compassionate and relational. Archangel Jophiel, refiner of perception. Jophiel is the archangel of beauty, enlightenment, and clarity of thought. She refines perception, bringing harmony to the mind and revealing truth through wisdom and grace. Through her, understanding becomes beautiful. Archangel Zadkiel, keeper of mercy. Zadkiel stands at the threshold of judgment, embodying mercy, forgiveness, and compassionate restraint. He intervenes where justice threatens finality, ensuring that repentance and transformation remain possible. Together, these seven archangels form a complete spiritual framework. Each answers a fundamental need of existence, and together they reveal a single truth. Divine order is not sustained by power alone, but by wisdom, healing, love, beauty, and mercy, acting in balance. Chapter 1. Archangel Michael. The figure known as Michael stands at the summit of the angelic hierarchy, recognized across centuries as the foremost defender of divine order. His name is not merely an identifier, but a declaration. Derived from the Hebrew Mikael, it translates to "who is like God," a rhetorical question rather than a statement, posed as a challenge against arrogance, rebellion, and any force that seeks to elevate itself above the divine. Embedded within his name is his essence: loyalty, humility before God, and unyielding resistance to chaos. Michael is consistently presented as the chief among angels, the commander of heavenly hosts, and the embodiment of righteous strength. Among all angelic beings, he is the one most closely associated with authority, discipline, and divine warfare. Where other angels deliver messages, heal wounds, or reveal mysteries, Michael acts. His role is not passive or symbolic. It is confrontational, decisive, and protective. He exists where conflict arises between order and disruption, between obedience and rebellion. From his earliest appearances in religious texts, Michael is defined by action rather than abstraction. He is a guardian, a warrior, and a judge. His presence signifies that divine boundaries have been crossed and must be restored. This functional clarity sets him apart from other archangels, whose roles may overlap or vary across traditions. Michael's purpose remains remarkably consistent: to defend the sovereignty of God and preserve the structure of creation. Michael's qualities are inseparable from his function. The most prominent among them is strength, not as brute force, but as disciplined power aligned with divine will. His strength is controlled, purposeful, and directed exclusively toward the preservation of order. Unlike figures driven by rage or ambition, Michael's power is restrained by obedience. He does not act independently. He acts as an extension of divine authority. Another defining quality is loyalty. Michael is portrayed as utterly incorruptible, immune to temptation, pride, or self-glorification. His name itself denies comparison with God, reinforcing the idea that no created being, no matter how powerful, can rival the divine. This makes Michael the antithesis of rebellion. Where rebellion seeks self-exaltation, Michael embodies submission to higher law. Courage is also central to his character. Michael is repeatedly placed in situations of immense cosmic conflict, yet he never hesitates or retreats. His courage is not reckless, but resolute. He confronts threats, not because he desires battle, but because battle becomes necessary when order is endangered. Equally important is justice. Michael is often associated with judgment, not as condemnation, but as discernment. He distinguishes between right and wrong, loyalty and betrayal, order and disorder. This judicial quality complements his martial nature, presenting him not merely as a soldier, but as an enforcer of divine law. Michael's primary role is that of protector. In religious tradition, he is assigned guardianship over nations, peoples, and the faithful. His protection operates on both a cosmic and individual level. On the cosmic scale, he defends heaven itself from internal and external threats. On the human scale, he stands as a guardian against forces of evil, chaos, and spiritual corruption. As commander of the heavenly armies, Michael occupies a position of unmatched authority among angels. He is not simply a warrior within the ranks. He leads them. His command implies strategy, hierarchy, and responsibility. He organizes, directs, and mobilizes angelic forces in response to existential threats to divine order. Michael also functions as an opponent of adversarial forces. His role brings him into direct conflict with figures and entities associated with rebellion and destruction. These confrontations are not personal vendettas, but necessary acts of defense. Michael does not seek domination. He seeks restoration of balance. In several traditions, Michael is additionally portrayed as a psychopomp, a guide or attendant at the moment of death. In this capacity, he oversees the transition of souls, ensuring that judgment is carried out according to divine justice. This role emphasizes his function as a boundary figure, standing between life and death, heaven and earth, mercy and judgment. Michael's attributes visually reinforce his role and qualities. The most iconic of these is the sword. Often depicted as flaming or radiant, the sword symbolizes divine judgment and the cutting away of corruption. It is not merely a weapon, but an instrument of truth, separating order from disorder. Equally significant are the scales frequently shown in Michael's hands. These scales represent judgment, balance, and moral evaluation. They suggest that Michael does not act blindly or excessively. His actions are measured. The scales imply accountability, reminding humanity that actions carry weight and consequences. Michael is often shown in armor, emphasizing readiness and discipline. Unlike angels depicted in flowing robes, Michael's attire reflects preparation for conflict. His armor is symbolic of vigilance and responsibility, reinforcing the idea that the defense of order requires constant readiness. His posture in iconography is typically upright and assertive, often with one foot placed upon a defeated adversary. This imagery conveys dominance over chaos and the inevitability of order's triumph. Yet his expression is usually calm rather than triumphant, underscoring that victory is duty fulfilled, not glory sought. Michael's presence is commanding, but not overwhelming. He does not persuade through words or inspire through beauty. He asserts through authority. When Michael appears, uncertainty ends. His presence signals that a decisive moment has arrived, that conflict will be resolved and boundaries restored. Unlike other archangels who may guide subtly or intervene quietly, Michael's involvement is unmistakable. He represents the final line of defense, the force that emerges when all other measures have failed. His nature is uncompromising, yet not cruel. Mercy exists within his domain, but it is secondary to justice and order. Michael's identity is defined less by narrative complexity and more by consistency. Across texts and traditions, his role remains stable. He does not evolve dramatically, nor does he shift in purpose. This constancy is itself part of his symbolism. Michael represents permanence, the unchanging nature of divine law in a world prone to fluctuation and disorder. The history of Michael is not confined to a single text, culture, or era. Unlike many angelic figures whose identities emerge gradually or fragment across traditions, Michael appears early and with remarkable clarity. His presence marks key moments of cosmic and human history, moments defined by conflict, transition, and divine intervention. Through these appearances, a coherent portrait forms not merely of a powerful angel, but of a being created for a specific and enduring purpose. Michael's earliest identifiable role emerges within Jewish apocalyptic literature, where angels are not decorative beings, but administrators of cosmic order. In these texts, the universe is envisioned as structured, governed, and defended. Chaos is not abstract. It is an active threat. Within this framework, Michael appears as a Tsar, a prince or guardian assigned authority over nations and peoples. His jurisdiction is not symbolic, but functional. He is tasked with defense, oversight, and enforcement of divine will within the created order. The Book of Daniel provides the most explicit early reference. Here, Michael is described as the great prince who stands watch over the children of your people. This description establishes several enduring aspects of his identity. First, he is a guardian assigned to humanity, not distant from it. Second, his role is protective during times of upheaval. Third, his authority is recognized even among other celestial beings. He does not merely assist, he presides. In Daniel's vision of cosmic conflict, Michael intervenes when opposing spiritual forces resist divine purpose. This moment reveals a crucial dimension of his history. Michael does not act continuously, but decisively. His interventions coincide with moments when the balance of order is threatened. He is not omnipresent in narrative because he is not ornamental. His appearances mark turning points. As Jewish thought developed, particularly in intertestamental literature, Michael's status expanded. Texts such as 1 Enoch and later mystical writings elevate him from national guardian to cosmic defender. In these traditions, Michael becomes one of the principal angels who stand before the throne of God. This phrase carries weight. To stand before the throne implies proximity, authority, and trust. Michael is not merely sent. He is stationed close to the source of divine command. The idea of Michael as a participant in heavenly judgment also develops during this period. He is depicted as an advocate for humanity, presenting cases, defending the righteous, and opposing accusations brought by adversarial forces. This advocacy does not contradict his role as judge. Rather, it completes it. Michael's justice is not arbitrary punishment but lawful discernment. His opposition to evil arises from his defense of what is rightly ordered. With the emergence of Christianity, Michael's history enters a new phase, one that cements his identity as a warrior on a cosmic scale. The Book of Revelation portrays a dramatic vision of war in heaven. Michael and his angels battle against the dragon and its followers. This is not a metaphorical skirmish, but a defining event in sacred history. The battle results in the expulsion of rebellious forces from heaven, establishing Michael as the agent through whom divine order is forcibly restored. This episode reframes Michael's role permanently. He's no longer only a guardian or advocate. He is the general of heaven's armies. The conflict is not territorial but ontological. It concerns the very structure of reality: who holds authority, who obeys, and who rebels. Michael's victory does not eliminate evil from existence, but it confines it, preventing it from corrupting the divine realm. Early Christian theologians seized upon this image to articulate a theology of spiritual warfare. Michael becomes the model of righteous resistance. He does not fight for personal gain or ideological conquest, but for the preservation of divine sovereignty. This interpretation reinforces the idea that Michael was created specifically to confront rebellion. His existence answers the emergence of opposition within creation. As Christian doctrine developed, Michael's responsibilities expanded further. He becomes associated with the end of time, the resurrection of the dead, and the final judgment. In some traditions, it is Michael who sounds the trumpet that announces the last day. In others, he oversees the weighing of souls, ensuring that judgment is carried out justly. These roles situate Michael at both the beginning and the end of sacred history, present at creation's defense and at its culmination. The reason for Michael's creation is thus revealed through function rather than explicit declaration. He exists because order requires defense. Creation, though good, is not static. It is dynamic, vulnerable, and subject to corruption. Michael embodies the principle that goodness must be protected, not assumed. His creation reflects an understanding that free will, while necessary, introduces the possibility of rebellion, and rebellion demands response. Michael's unwavering loyalty contrasts sharply with narratives of fallen angels, where others choose self-exaltation. Michael's defining act is submission. His name itself rejects comparison with God. This suggests that his creation serves as a corrective force within the cosmos. He is not merely powerful, he is intentionally oriented away from pride. His identity reinforces the boundary between creator and creation. In medieval Christianity, Michael's cult expanded significantly. Churches, shrines, and orders were dedicated to him. He was invoked by soldiers, rulers, and common people alike. This widespread veneration reflects the perception of Michael as accessible yet authoritative. He was seen as a protector not only of heaven but of earthly institutions that sought to align themselves with divine order. Simultaneously, theological writings emphasized Michael's role as a mediator between divine justice and human frailty. He was not viewed as merciless. Rather, his justice was seen as structured mercy, justice that prevents chaos, mercy that operates within law. This balance made him a central figure in discussions of morality, authority, and obedience. Beyond Christianity and Judaism, Michael appears prominently in Islamic tradition under the name Mikhail. Here, his role shifts in emphasis but not in dignity. Mikhail is associated with sustenance, rain, and the distribution of divine provision. While he is less explicitly martial, his function remains tied to order and balance. He ensures that creation is sustained according to divine decree. The warrior becomes a steward, yet the underlying principle remains: preservation of divine order. Islamic theology portrays Mikhail as compassionate toward humanity, concerned with their welfare. This dimension complements rather than contradicts earlier portrayals. It suggests that Michael's opposition to chaos is not rooted in severity, but in care for creation. Destruction is resisted because life is valued. In mystical traditions, particularly within Jewish Kabbalah and later Christian esotericism, Michael is associated with specific emanations of divine energy. He is linked to attributes of strength, justice, and harmony. These associations frame Michael not only as an individual being, but as a manifestation of divine principles at work within the cosmos. Across these traditions, Michael's history remains unified by purpose. He is consistently positioned at moments of crisis, transition, and judgment. He does not initiate creation, nor does he conclude it alone, but he ensures that creation does not collapse into disorder. His story is not one of personal development, but of perpetual responsibility. At the end of his historical arc, Michael stands as a figure who transcends individual religions, while remaining firmly rooted in each. In Judaism, he is the guardian prince. In Christianity, he is the warrior of heaven and arbiter of judgment. In Islam, he is the sustainer and distributor of divine mercy. In mysticism, he is the embodiment of disciplined power and righteous strength. These variations do not fracture his identity, they reveal its breadth. Across religions, Michael represents the same core truth expressed through different lenses: that divine order is not self-maintaining, that justice requires action, and that loyalty is the highest form of strength. Chapter 2. Archangel Gabriel. The archangel known as Gabriel occupies a position distinct from all other angelic beings. Where some archangels act through force, judgment, or protection, Gabriel acts through speech. His presence signals not confrontation, but revelation. His role is to speak what must be heard, to deliver truths that alter destinies, and to bridge the immeasurable distance between the divine and the human through communication. The name Gabriel comes from the Hebrew Gavriel, commonly understood to mean God is my strength, or strength of God. Unlike Michael's name, which challenges pride, Gabriel's name affirms reliance. It does not declare power as possession, but as source. Strength does not originate in Gabriel himself, it flows through him. This distinction is fundamental to his nature. Gabriel is not defined by authority over others, but by fidelity to the message entrusted to him. Gabriel is consistently presented as the messenger of decisive moments. He does not appear for trivial announcements or minor revelations. His arrivals mark turning points in sacred history moments, when humanity is given knowledge that reshapes the future. When Gabriel speaks, history bends. His words initiate covenants, fulfill prophecies, and open paths that cannot be reversed. Unlike angels who remain unnamed or vaguely described, Gabriel is characterized by clarity. He explains, interprets, and reveals. He does not obscure truth. He unveils it. This makes him the angel most closely associated with understanding, articulation, and divine intention expressed in human language. Gabriel's defining quality is clarity. He is sent not merely to deliver messages, but to ensure they are understood. In sacred texts, Gabriel frequently interprets visions that would otherwise remain incomprehensible. His role assumes that divine truth, when unmediated, can overwhelm or confuse the human mind. Gabriel exists to translate the infinite into the intelligible. Another central quality is authority through trust. Gabriel does not command armies or enforce judgment, yet his authority is unquestioned. He speaks because he has been entrusted. His words carry weight, not because of threat, but because of origin. This makes his authority quieter than Michael's, but no less absolute. Gabriel also embodies precision. He does not embellish, soften, or alter the message he carries. His speech is direct, exact, and purposeful. Even when delivering messages that provoke fear or uncertainty, he does not distort them to comfort the listener. His fidelity lies in accuracy, not reassurance. A further defining quality is presence without domination. Gabriel often appears in ways that are awe-inspiring yet non-aggressive. His encounters evoke fear or wonder, but not violence. He does not compel obedience through force. He invites response through revelation. Humanity is left to choose how to respond to what he reveals. Gabriel's primary role is that of divine messenger, but this title understates the scope of his work. He is not a courier delivering sealed information. He is an interpreter of divine will, ensuring that what is revealed can be grasped within human limitation. One of Gabriel's key functions is the interpretation of visions. In prophetic literature, visions are often symbolic, layered, and overwhelming. Gabriel enters these moments to provide explanation. He deciphers timelines, clarifies symbols, and situates visions within a coherent framework. Through this work, he transforms raw revelation into usable knowledge. Gabriel is also responsible for announcements of incarnation and covenantal change. His messages frequently concern births, callings, and missions that will reshape spiritual history. These are not abstract doctrines but embodied realities. Children who will be born, lives that will be transformed, paths that will be opened. Another essential aspect of Gabriel's work is his role as link between heaven and earth. He is the point at which divine intention crosses into human experience through language. Without Gabriel, revelation remains distant. With him, it becomes audible. Unlike archangels associated with protection or judgment, Gabriel does not intervene to stop events. He announces them. He reveals what is coming, but he does not prevent or enforce it. This places responsibility squarely on those who receive his message. Knowledge, once given, cannot be taken back. Gabriel's attributes reflect his function as a messenger rather than a warrior. He is most often depicted holding a scroll or trumpet. The scroll symbolizes written revelation, divine knowledge unfolding over time. It suggests continuity, prophecy, and the recording of sacred truth. The trumpet, when associated with Gabriel, represents announcement and awakening. Its sound signals that something new has begun or is about to begin. It calls attention, interrupts the ordinary flow of life, and demands awareness. The trumpet does not explain itself. It summons the listener to attend. Gabriel is frequently shown clothed in light-colored or flowing garments, emphasizing purity and openness rather than defense. His imagery lacks armor or weapons, reinforcing the idea that his power lies not in force, but in truth. In artistic traditions, Gabriel's posture is often forward-facing and open, suggesting approach rather than confrontation. He enters spaces rather than guards them. His gestures are communicative, raised hands, extended arms reflecting his role as one who speaks and reveals. Gabriel's presence is often described as overwhelming but not hostile. Those who encounter him frequently experience fear, confusion, or awe, yet the fear arises from proximity to the divine message rather than threat of harm. His first words in many encounters are reassurance, not because the message is gentle, but because the messenger himself does not intend violence. His nature is deeply relational. Gabriel does not appear in isolation. He appears to someone. His existence is defined by interaction. Unlike angels who act independently within cosmic systems, Gabriel's work is inherently dialogical. He speaks, listens, explains, and responds. Gabriel's presence marks moments when silence ends. Before he appears, there is waiting, uncertainty, or hidden purpose. After he speaks, ignorance is no longer an excuse. Knowledge has been given, and history must move forward. There is also a notable humility in Gabriel's nature. Despite delivering the most profound revelations, he never claims ownership of them. He does not argue, persuade, or debate. He states what has been entrusted to him and withdraws. the focus remains on the message, not the messenger. Within the order of the archangels, Gabriel occupies a role that complements rather than competes with others. Where Michael defends order through action, Gabriel establishes order through understanding. Where Raphael heals what is broken, Gabriel reveals what is hidden. Where Uriel illuminates wisdom, Gabriel articulates divine intent. His work often precedes that of others. Revelation comes before action. Understanding comes before judgment. In this sense, Gabriel functions as the initiator of divine processes. He announces what will be, allowing other forces, human and divine, to respond. Gabriel's significance lies not in dominance, but in necessity. Without revelation, protection lacks direction. Without understanding, obedience becomes blind. Gabriel ensures that divine will is not only executed, but known. In the hierarchy of angels, Gabriel stands as the voice of heaven, not the loudest voice, but the clearest. The historical presence of Gabriel unfolds gradually across sacred literature, yet wherever he appears, his role is unmistakable. Gabriel does not emerge as a marginal figure or a background attendant. He appears at moments when divine intention must be articulated with precision, when silence would result in misunderstanding, and when humanity stands at the threshold of irreversible change. His history is therefore inseparable from the history of Revelation itself. Gabriel's earliest identifiable appearances occur within Jewish, prophetic, and apocalyptic texts. In these writings, Revelation is often overwhelming visions of cosmic upheaval, symbolic imagery, and divine timelines that stretch beyond human comprehension. Gabriel enters this environment not to generate visions, but to interpret them. This establishes his foundational function. Revelation requires interpretation. Without understanding, divine communication fails its purpose. In the book of Daniel, Gabriel is explicitly named as the angel who explains visions concerning the future of nations, empires, and divine judgment. These visions are complex and layered, involving symbolic beasts, numbers, and cosmic timelines. Gabriel's intervention transforms chaos into coherence. He does not soften the message, nor does he withhold its implications. He provides structure, context, and meaning. This moment anchors Gabriel's historical identity as the interpreter of prophecy. From this point onward, Gabriel becomes associated with temporal revelation, the unfolding of divine plans across time. He is not merely concerned with immediate instruction, but with long-term purpose. His explanations connect present circumstances to future fulfillment, allowing humanity to situate itself within a larger divine narrative. As Jewish thought evolved during the Second Temple period, angelology became more developed and hierarchical. Gabriel's position solidified as one of the principal angels who stand close to the divine presence. He is no longer simply dispatched, he is entrusted. This trust implies discernment. Not all messages are delivered through Gabriel, only those that carry foundational weight. In later Jewish tradition, Gabriel is also associated with acts of divine power that are not violent, but decisive. He becomes linked to moments where divine justice is enacted through revelation rather than destruction. This reinforces the idea that Gabriel's purpose is not to punish, but to declare truth that leads to consequence. With the emergence of Christianity, Gabriel's historical role expands dramatically. He becomes the central figure in the announcement of events that redefine human history. His appearance to Zechariah announces the birth of John the Baptist, a figure who will prepare the way for transformation. This announcement is not merely predictive, it is initiatory. The message itself begins the process it declares. Gabriel's appearance to Mary marks one of the most pivotal moments in Christian theology. The announcement of the Incarnation is delivered not through abstract prophecy, but through direct address. Gabriel does not command, he informs. He presents the divine will and allows human consent to play a role. This interaction underscores a crucial dimension of Gabriel's purpose. Revelation does not eliminate free will. It clarifies it. This moment also reveals why Gabriel exists. The incarnation, as a theological concept, requires precise communication. Misinterpretation would distort meaning, doctrine, and consequence. Gabriel's presence ensures that the divine message is conveyed with exactness, dignity, and clarity. He is created for moments when misunderstanding would be catastrophic. Early Christian writers emphasized Gabriel's role as the herald of grace. While Michael enforces justice, Gabriel announces mercy before it manifests. This positioning places Gabriel chronologically before redemption events. He does not enact salvation. He announces its arrival. This distinction preserves the integrity of divine action while elevating the importance of revelation. As Christian theology developed, Gabriel's association with the end times also emerged. In some traditions, he is linked to the trumpet that signals resurrection and final judgment. Whether literal or symbolic, this association reinforces his identity as the angel whose voice marks transitions between ignorance and knowledge, between waiting and fulfillment, between history and culmination. In Islamic tradition, Gabriel reaches perhaps his most expansive role. Known as Jibril, he is the primary agent of revelation to the Prophet Muhammad. Over a period of years, Jibril delivers the verses that form the Quran. This role establishes Gabriel not as a single event messenger, but as a sustained channel of divine communication. Within Islam, Jibril is not merely an announcer, but a teacher. He recites, corrects, and ensures preservation of revelation. His relationship with prophecy is continuous and intimate. This portrayal deepens the understanding of Gabriel's reason for creation. Revelation is not a moment, it is a process. Gabriel exists to sustain that process over time. Islamic theology presents Jibril as immense in presence and power, yet completely obedient. His authority derives from proximity to divine speech. He does not interpret independently. He transmits faithfully. This portrayal aligns closely with earlier Jewish and Christian understandings, despite doctrinal differences. The reason for Gabriel's creation becomes clear when viewed across these traditions. Divine will, if left unspoken, remains inaccessible. Creation requires communication to remain aligned with purpose. Gabriel embodies the principle that truth must be spoken to be effective. He exists because silence would allow distortion, ignorance, and deviation to take root. Unlike archangels created to defend, heal, or judge, Gabriel is created to reveal. His function presupposes free will. He does not compel obedience. He enables informed choice. This makes his role uniquely human-oriented. He bridges infinity and limitation without diminishing either. In mystical traditions, Gabriel is associated with intellectual clarity, disciplined thought, and divine speech. He is linked to the element of air, symbolizing breath, voice, and transmission. These associations further reinforce his identity as the mediator between intention and expression. Across religions, Gabriel remains consistent in essence while varied in emphasis. In Judaism, he is the interpreter of visions and executor of divine messages. In Christianity, he is the herald of incarnation and fulfillment. In Islam, he is the bearer of final revelation. In mysticism, he is the principle of divine communication itself. These perspectives converge on a single truth. Gabriel represents the necessity of understanding. Divine power without revelation becomes fear. Divine mercy without explanation becomes confusion. Gabriel ensures that when God acts, humanity knows why, how, and toward what end. At the crossroads of heaven and earth, Gabriel stands not with sword or scale, but with voice. Across all traditions, he is the answer to silence. Chapter 3. Archangel Raphael. The Archangel Raphael occupies a unique and deeply intimate position within the angelic order. Unlike figures associated with cosmic warfare, judgment, or proclamation, Raphael's presence unfolds quietly, often unnoticed, yet profoundly transformative. His domain is not the battlefield or the throne room, but the journey, the wound, and the slow restoration of what has been broken. Raphael is the archangel of healing, not only of the body, but of sight, spirit, and direction. The name Raphael comes from the Hebrew Raphael, meaning God has healed. This name does not imply potential or promise. It is declarative. Healing, in Raphael's case, is not aspirational. It is accomplished. His very identity affirms that restoration is an active, ongoing expression of divine will. Where suffering exists, Raphael's purpose is already implied. Raphael is distinguished among the archangels by the manner of his interaction with humanity. He does not descend in overwhelming light or speak from beyond reach. Instead, he walks alongside, he accompanies, guides, and intervenes subtly. His power lies in proximity rather than authority, in patience rather than command. This closeness defines his role and shapes his qualities. The foremost quality associated with Raphael is healing, but this healing is multidimensional. It encompasses physical illness, emotional distress, spiritual blindness, and existential disorientation. Raphael does not simply cure symptoms. He restores wholeness. His work addresses the root of affliction, whether that root is bodily, psychological, or spiritual. Closely linked to healing is compassion. Raphael's actions are motivated by care rather than correction. He does not confront humanity for its weakness. He attends to it. His compassion is not sentimental but practical. It expresses itself through guidance, protection, and instruction tailored to human limitation. Another defining quality is patience. Raphael's interventions often unfold over time. He does not impose immediate resolution, but allows growth through process. This patience reflects an understanding of human fragility. Healing, in Raphael's domain, respects rhythm and readiness. Raphael also embodies discretion. Unlike other archangels whose identities are unmistakable upon appearance, Raphael frequently conceals his true nature. This concealment is intentional. It allows humans to act freely, learn gradually, and participate actively in their own restoration. His presence does not demand reverence. It earns trust. Raphael's primary role is that of healer and guide. His work operates at the intersection of movement and recovery. He is invoked during journeys, both literal and metaphorical, where danger, uncertainty, or suffering threatens progress. Raphael ensures safe passage not by eliminating all risk, but by providing the means to navigate it. One of Raphael's defining functions is guidance through liminal spaces. These are moments of transition, illness to health, blindness to sight, despair to hope, ignorance to understanding. Raphael does not force change. He escorts it. His guidance empowers individuals to move forward without losing themselves in the process. Raphael also functions as a protector, though his protection differs from Michael's. Where Michael repels threats through force, Raphael neutralizes them through prevention and instruction. He teaches how to avoid danger, how to recognize harmful influences, and how to apply knowledge to preserve well-being. Instruction is a crucial element of Raphael's work. He does not merely heal, he teaches how healing occurs. This educational aspect reinforces autonomy. Those aided by Raphael are not left dependent but strengthened, equipped to continue their journey independently. Raphael's attributes are drawn primarily from narratives of accompaniment and healing. He is most often depicted holding a staff, symbolizing travel, support, and guidance. The staff represents movement sustained by balance, progress, made possible through steady assistance. Another key symbol associated with Raphael is the fish. This image originates from narratives in which Raphael instructs the use of a fish's organs to bring about healing. Symbolically, the fish represents hidden remedy, healing drawn from unexpected or overlooked sources. It suggests that restoration often lies close at hand, waiting to be understood. Raphael is frequently portrayed in traveler's attire, reinforcing his identity as a companion on the road rather than a distant celestial authority. His clothing is practical, his posture relaxed, his expression attentive. These artistic choices emphasize accessibility and trust. Light is present in Raphael's iconography, but it is soft rather than radiant. It illuminates without overwhelming, guiding without blinding. This subdued light reflects his role as a healer, who works gently, respecting the vulnerability of those he aids. Raphael's presence is reassuring rather than awe-inducing. Those who encounter him are often unaware of his true identity until his work is complete. This anonymity is not deception, but protection. It allows healing to occur without fear, reverence, or dependence interfering with the process. His nature is relational. Raphael engages through conversation, shared experience, and companionship. He listens as much as he acts. His interventions are responsive, shaped by the needs and readiness of those he accompanies. Raphael's presence often becomes evident only in retrospect. Healing is recognized after it has taken root. Guidance is appreciated once the destination is reached. This delayed recognition aligns with his purpose, to restore without drawing attention to himself. Within the hierarchy of archangels, Raphael occupies the role of restorer, where Gabriel reveals truth and Michael defends order. Raphael repairs the damage that truth and conflict can leave behind. His work ensures that survival becomes recovery and endurance becomes renewal. Raphael complements the others by addressing what remains after decisive events. After judgment, after revelation, after battle, there is need for healing. Raphael fulfills that need. He ensures continuity, enabling humanity to move forward rather than remain fractured by experience. Among the archangels, Raphael stands closest to human vulnerability. He does not operate at the extremes of power or mystery, but within the ordinary realities of pain, fatigue, fear, and hope. His role affirms that divine concern extends not only to cosmic order, but to individual suffering. In Raphael, healing is not an exception, it is a principle. The historical foundation of Raphael is more intimate and narrative-driven than that of many other archangels. Unlike Michael, whose identity is forged in cosmic conflict, or Gabriel, whose presence reshapes history through proclamation, Raphael's history unfolds through companionship, concealment, and gradual revelation. His story is not centered on dramatic confrontation or world-altering announcements, but on the quiet transformation of individual lives. Through this lens, Raphael's origin and purpose become clear. He exists to restore what suffering obscures and to guide humanity through the vulnerabilities of existence. Raphael's most complete and influential appearance occurs in the Book of Tobit, a text preserved within Catholic and Orthodox biblical canons and respected in Jewish tradition as instructive literature. In this narrative, Raphael is sent in response to layered human suffering, blindness, grief, fear, and spiritual oppression. His mission is not singular but comprehensive, addressing multiple afflictions across a family line. This multidimensional task reveals that Raphael's work is rarely isolated. Healing, in his domain, is interconnected. In the story, Raphael appears in human form, adopting the name Azarias, and offers to accompany Tobias on a dangerous journey. This concealment is essential. Raphael does not announce his identity or demand recognition. His guidance is embedded within ordinary interaction. He advises, protects, and instructs without revealing the divine source of his authority. This establishes a defining aspect of Raphael's history. He intervenes without disrupting human agency. As the journey progresses, Raphael protects Tobias from physical danger, most notably from a deadly creature encountered along the way. Rather than eliminating the threat entirely, Raphael instructs Tobias on how to confront it and how to use its remains for healing purposes. This moment encapsulates Raphael's method. He does not remove adversity outright. He transforms it into remedy. What threatens becomes what heals. This principle lies at the heart of Raphael's purpose. The culmination of Raphael's mission occurs when Tobias uses the prescribed remedy to heal his father Tobit's blindness. Only after restoration is complete does Raphael reveal his true identity. His declaration is restrained and precise. He identifies himself as one of the 7 angels who stand before God and states that his mission was to bring healing to the household. This delayed revelation reinforces the idea that recognition is secondary to restoration. This narrative establishes Raphael's historical role as an active participant in human life, rather than a distant overseer. He eats, travels, speaks, and advises as a companion. His presence sanctifies the ordinary without overpowering it. Through this story, Raphael becomes the model of divine assistance that respects human process. Beyond Tobit, Raphael appears in broader Jewish angelological traditions as one of the principal angels associated with healing, protection, and guidance. In texts such as 1 Enoch, he is named among the angels, entrusted with oversight of humanity and the world. Here, his role expands from individual healing to cosmic responsibility. He is described as a guardian of spirits and a restrainer of corruption, reinforcing the idea that healing applies not only to bodies but to systems and environments. Raphael's association with healing also extends into early medical symbolism. He becomes linked with physicians, herbal knowledge, and the idea that healing is both spiritual and practical. This duality divine authority, expressed through natural means, reflects Raphael's historical function. He bridges the sacred and the empirical without diminishing either. The reason for Raphael's creation emerges through these traditions with increasing clarity. Where free will introduces suffering, illness, and error, restoration becomes necessary. Raphael embodies the principle that divine creation is not abandoned when it breaks. He exists because healing is required not as punishment or reward, but as continuity. Without Raphael, survival would remain incomplete. Existence would persist, but wholeness would not. Raphael's role also addresses a theological necessity. Endurance alone is insufficient. Humanity does not merely need to withstand hardship, it needs to recover from it. Raphael's creation ensures that suffering does not become the final word. His presence affirms that damage is not destiny. In later Christian tradition, Raphael's identity remains closely tied to Tobit, yet his influence broadens. He becomes invoked in prayers for healing, safe travel, and emotional restoration. His association with journeys expands beyond physical movement to include life transitions, marriage, recovery, grief, and vocation. This reflects a recognition that Raphael's guidance applies wherever vulnerability exists. Medieval devotion often portrayed Raphael as the patron of travelers, pilgrims, doctors, and caregivers. This expansion is not accidental. Raphael's historical narrative aligns naturally with those who move between places, states, and conditions. He becomes the angel of the in-between between illness and health, danger and safety, despair and hope. In Islamic tradition, Raphael is commonly identified with Israfil, the angel associated with the trumpet that will announce the day of resurrection. While this identification differs in function from the healer of Tobit, it does not negate Raphael's restorative nature. Resurrection itself is the ultimate healing, the restoration of life after dissolution. In this context, Raphael's role shifts from individual recovery to cosmic renewal. Islamic theology presents Israfil as patient, vigilant, and obedient, awaiting the moment when restoration on a universal scale will occur. This aligns with Raphael's broader identity as one who oversees transitions from brokenness to wholeness, whether individual or collective. In mystical traditions, Raphael is associated with the element of air and with intellectual and emotional clarity. He is linked to balance, harmony, and the alignment of inner and outer life. These associations reinforce his historical role as a restorer of equilibrium. Healing, in this sense, is not limited to curing disease, but includes realigning the self with purpose and direction. Across religious traditions, Raphael's identity remains remarkably coherent, despite variations in emphasis. In Judaism, he is the healer and protector of humanity. In Christianity, he is the companion and restorer. In Islam, he is associated with resurrection and renewal. In mysticism, he represents harmony and balance. Each tradition highlights a different aspect of the same foundational truth. Healing is essential to the continuation of creation. Raphael's history demonstrates that divine intervention does not always arrive with spectacle. Sometimes it arrives disguised as companionship. Sometimes it speaks quietly, waits patiently, and reveals itself only after the work is done. His creation reflects an understanding of humanity, not as a problem to be solved, but as a journey to be sustained. At the end of Raphael's historical arc, he stands as the embodiment of divine care expressed through presence. Across religions, cultures, and eras, his role remains constant in purpose, if varied in form: to guide, to heal, and to ensure that what is wounded is not abandoned. Chapter 4. Archangel Uriel. Among the archangels, Uriel occupies the realm of wisdom, illumination, and divine understanding. Where Michael defends, Gabriel reveals, and Raphael heals, Uriel explains. His function is intellectual and perceptive rather than martial or restorative. He is the archangel who brings light to obscurity, order to confusion, and comprehension to mystery. Uriel does not merely provide answers. He enables insight. The name Uriel originates from the Hebrew Uriel, meaning God is my light, or light of God. This name defines his entire identity. Light, in Uriel's context, is not physical brightness, but awareness, illumination of truth, structure, and meaning. He represents the divine capacity to be understood, not fully or absolutely, but sufficiently for order and purpose to exist. Uriel is most often associated with knowledge that precedes action. He reveals the consequences of events before they unfold, explains divine systems that govern creation, and clarifies the hidden mechanics behind judgment and destiny. His presence signals that understanding is being offered not as comfort, but as preparation. The defining quality of Uriel is wisdom. This wisdom is not instinctive or emotional. It is analytical, structured, and expansive. Uriel understands systems, cosmic order, natural law, and divine timing. His knowledge encompasses both the physical and metaphysical realms, bridging astronomy, prophecy, and moral consequence. Closely connected to wisdom is discernment. Uriel does not merely possess information. He understands relevance. He knows what must be revealed and what must remain concealed. This discernment protects humanity from being overwhelmed by truths it cannot yet bear. Another central quality is foresight. Uriel frequently appears as a warning figure, revealing outcomes before they occur. This foresight is not fatalistic. It exists to allow correction, preparation, or repentance. Uriel's warnings are acts of mercy through knowledge. Uriel also embodies clarity under judgment. His revelations are often associated with divine correction or impending consequence. Yet, he does not threaten. He explains. His clarity removes confusion, so that judgment, when it arrives, is understood rather than arbitrary. Uriel's primary role is that of illuminator of divine mysteries. He is tasked with explaining complex truths related to creation, time, and judgment. His work frequently intersects with prophecy, especially where understanding is required before obedience becomes possible. One of Uriel's key functions is warning. He is sent to alert humanity to approaching judgment or transformation. These warnings are not condemnations. They exist to offer choice. Uriel's role presupposes that knowledge can alter outcomes. Uriel also serves as an interpreter of cosmic order. He explains how natural and supernatural systems operate, revealing the logic behind divine governance. This includes the movement of celestial bodies, the structure of time, and the moral architecture of reality. Another significant aspect of Uriel's work is guardianship of sacred thresholds. In later traditions, he is associated with boundaries between innocence and knowledge, order and chaos. This guardianship emphasizes that wisdom carries responsibility. Knowledge must be approached correctly, not seized recklessly. Uriel's symbols consistently emphasize illumination and understanding. He is often depicted holding a flame or sun, representing divine light that reveals rather than consumes. This fire does not destroy, it clarifies. Another frequent attribute is the book or scroll, symbolizing recorded knowledge, law, and cosmic order. Unlike Gabriel's scroll, which announces, Uriel's scroll explains. It contains systems rather than messages. Uriel is also associated with open hands or raised light, gestures that suggest offering rather than command. His posture implies invitation to learn, to see, to comprehend. In iconography, Uriel's light often shines downward or outward, illuminating paths or revealing hidden structures. This reinforces his role as a guide of understanding rather than movement. Uriel's presence is solemn and contemplative. Encounters with him are marked by gravity rather than fear. He does not overwhelm emotionally. He engages intellectually. His presence often precedes realization, moments when understanding arrives suddenly and irreversibly. He is not warm in the way Raphael is, nor commanding like Michael. His demeanor is instructive, measured, and precise. He speaks when explanation is required, not when reassurance is sought. Uriel's presence often leaves individuals burdened but prepared. Knowledge brings responsibility, and Uriel does not shield humanity from that weight. Instead, he equips it to bear it. Within the archangelic order, Uriel functions as the mind of divine governance. Where others execute, announce, or repair, Uriel contextualizes. He ensures that divine action is intelligible within the structure of creation. Uriel often operates before or alongside judgment. His revelations ensure that judgment is understood, justified, and anticipated. In this way, he supports justice without enforcing it. He compliments Gabriel by explaining what Gabriel announces, and compliments Michael by clarifying why defense or judgment becomes necessary. Without Uriel, divine action risks appearing arbitrary. With him, order becomes visible. Uriel stands as the archangel, who teaches that light is not merely comfort, it is responsibility. The historical presence of Uriel unfolds primarily within apocryphal, mystical, and early theological traditions rather than the core canonical scriptures. This absence from the central biblical canon does not diminish his significance. Rather, it defines it. Uriel appears where deeper explanation is required, where divine action must be understood, not merely obeyed. His history is bound to humanity's need for comprehension in the face of overwhelming divine reality. Uriel's earliest and most substantial appearances occur in Jewish apocalyptic literature, particularly in texts such as 1 Enoch and related writings. In these works, the universe is depicted as a highly structured system governed by divine law. Time, nature, judgment, and destiny are not random forces but ordered mechanisms. Uriel functions as the angel entrusted with explaining these mechanisms. In 1 Enoch, Uriel is presented as one of the principal angels who guide and instruct humanity regarding cosmic order. He explains the movement of heavenly bodies, the structure of time, and the reasons behind divine judgment. This role establishes him not as a messenger of singular events, but as an interpreter of systems. He reveals how creation works and why it operates as it does. One of Uriel's most significant roles in these texts is that of warning. He is sent to inform Noah of the coming flood, explaining both its inevitability and its cause. This warning is not merely informational, it is preparatory. Uriel's involvement ensures that judgment is not arbitrary or sudden. Humanity is given knowledge before consequence. This moment crystallizes Uriel's historical function. He exists to prevent ignorance from becoming injustice. Uriel's role in warning Noah also clarifies his relationship to judgment. He does not execute it, nor does he announce it ceremonially. He explains it. His involvement reflects a theological principle that divine judgment must be intelligible to be just. Uriel embodies that principle. As Jewish mystical thought developed, Uriel's association with wisdom deepened. He became linked to the illumination of conscience and the clarification of moral law. In these traditions, Uriel's light reveals not only cosmic structure, but internal truth. He exposes hidden motives, consequences, and ethical implications. Knowledge, under Uriel's influence, becomes inseparable from responsibility. The reason for Uriel's creation becomes evident within this framework. Creation is governed by laws, moral, physical, and spiritual. For free beings to exist meaningfully within such a system, they must understand it to some degree. Uriel exists because ignorance undermines order. Without understanding, obedience becomes blind, and rebellion becomes accidental. Uriel ensures that knowledge precedes accountability. In early Christian thought, Uriel's position becomes more complex. While not universally accepted as canonical, he appears frequently in theological speculation and later writings. He becomes associated with divine fire not as destruction, but as illumination. Fire, in this sense, represents truth that reveals and purifies simultaneously. Some Christian traditions associate Uriel with the cherub who guards the entrance to Eden after humanity's expulsion. This association is symbolic rather than explicit, yet it aligns closely with Uriel's identity. The guardian of Eden is not merely a sentry but a protector of knowledge. Eden represents innocence without understanding. Once knowledge is gained, return is impossible. Uriel's role, in this interpretation, is to safeguard the boundary between innocence and awareness. This symbolism reinforces Uriel's historical function as a boundary figure. He governs transitions from ignorance to knowledge, from warning to judgment, from potential to consequence. His presence marks points where understanding changes status. In medieval Christian mysticism, Uriel becomes increasingly associated with intellectual clarity and divine insight. Scholars and theologians invoke him as a guide in the pursuit of truth. This reflects a growing recognition that faith and understanding are not opposites but partners. Uriel stands at the intersection of reason and revelation. Uriel's association with natural order also becomes prominent during this period. He is linked to the sun, stars, and cycles of time. These associations emphasize that wisdom is embedded within creation itself. Uriel reveals what is already present but unseen. His light does not invent truth, it uncovers it. In Islamic tradition, Uriel does not appear explicitly as a named archangel in the same way Michael or Gabriel do. However, his function finds parallels in angels associated with knowledge, record, and divine order. The Quranic emphasis on signs within creation, natural phenomena as indicators of divine truth, resonates strongly with Uriel's conceptual role. Though unnamed, his function persists. In Islamic cosmology, understanding the signs of God in the heavens and the earth is a moral obligation. This mirrors Uriel's purpose across other traditions. Illumination as responsibility. Knowledge is not optional. It is required for alignment with divine will. In later esoteric and mystical systems, Uriel is often associated with intellectual enlightenment, philosophical inquiry, and the pursuit of hidden truth. He becomes the patron of thinkers, seekers, and those who question not to rebel, but to understand. This evolution reflects humanity's growing emphasis on cognition as a sacred act. Across traditions, Uriel's identity remains coherent in purpose, if varied in expression. In Jewish apocalyptic texts, he is the explainer of cosmic law. In Christian mysticism, he is the light of understanding and guardian of sacred thresholds. In Islamic thought, his function echoes through the emphasis on discernment and recognition of divine signs. In esoteric traditions, he becomes the archetype of enlightened reason. These perspectives converge on a single truth. Divine order demands comprehension. Uriel exists because creation is intelligible, and that intelligibility must be revealed. Without Uriel, wisdom remains inaccessible. With him, knowledge becomes the bridge between divine intention and human responsibility. Uriel's history demonstrates that illumination is not comfort, but preparation. His light does not soften reality, it clarifies it. Across religions and eras, he stands as the archangel who ensures that when judgment comes, it comes to those who have been warned, instructed, and given the chance to understand. Chapter 5. Archangel Chamuel. Among the archangels, Chamuel occupies a domain that is inward rather than cosmic, emotional rather than martial, and restorative rather than declarative. Where Michael confronts rebellion, Gabriel delivers revelation, Raphael heals wounds, and Uriel illuminates understanding. Chamuel governs love, compassion, and inner harmony. His work is not directed toward external enemies or prophetic timelines, but toward the fractures that occur within the human heart. The name Chamuel, also rendered as Kamael or Samael in various traditions, derives from Hebrew roots commonly interpreted as he who sees God, or one who seeks God. This meaning immediately distinguishes Chamuel from other archangels. His identity is not defined by power, exercised outwardly, but by perception, oriented inwardly. To see God in this context is not visual sight, but awareness, recognizing the divine presence within relationships, emotions, and moral alignment. Chamuel is not a prominent figure in canonical biblical texts. His emergence occurs primarily within Jewish mysticism, Kabbalistic writings, and later Christian esoteric traditions. This absence from scripture is itself significant. Chamuel appears where theology turns inward toward emotional states, ethical struggle, and the unseen dynamics of love, reconciliation, and belonging. His role addresses needs that doctrine alone cannot satisfy. The defining quality of Chamuel is love, but not love in its sentimental or romantic sense. His domain concerns unconditional, stabilizing love, the force that reconciles division, restores dignity, and reorients the self toward wholeness. This love is not passive affection. It is active alignment. It seeks to repair what resentment, grief, or isolation has damaged. Closely tied to love is compassion. Chamuel's compassion is attentive rather than dramatic. He does not overwhelm suffering with solutions. He remains present within it. His compassion allows pain to be acknowledged without being judged or dismissed. This creates space for healing that is emotional and spiritual rather than physical. Another essential quality is peace. Chamuel governs inner calm, emotional balance, and the resolution of inner conflict. His peace is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to remain whole within it. Where Uriel clarifies and Raphael restores, Chamuel stabilizes. Chamuel also embodies loyalty and relational fidelity. His influence strengthens bonds between individuals, within communities, and between humanity and the divine. He supports commitment, trust, and perseverance in the face of emotional strain. Chamuel's primary role is that of restorer of relational harmony. His work unfolds wherever connection has been damaged through loss, misunderstanding, betrayal, or fear. He does not erase memory or consequence. He reshapes perception, allowing reconciliation to become possible. One of Chamuel's central functions is emotional guidance. He assists individuals in navigating grief, loneliness, anger, and self-doubt. His guidance does not impose emotional outcomes, but encourages clarity of feeling and acceptance of vulnerability. Through this process, individuals regain the capacity to connect meaningfully with others. Chamuel is also invoked as a finder of what is lost, not only in physical terms, but emotionally and spiritually. This includes lost purpose, lost faith, lost relationships, and lost self-worth. His influence supports recovery rather than replacement, emphasizing restoration over reinvention. Another aspect of Chamuel's work involves inner alignment. He helps reconcile internal contradictions between desire and duty, fear and hope, self-image and truth. This alignment allows individuals to act from integrity rather than fragmentation. Chamuel's attributes reflect his association with emotional and spiritual states rather than external authority. He is often symbolized by the heart, representing love, empathy, and relational awareness. Unlike the sword or scroll, the heart signifies vulnerability and connection. The cup or chalice is another symbol associated with Chamuel, representing emotional containment and shared experience. The cup holds rather than strikes or announces. It signifies the capacity to receive, process, and offer compassion. Chamuel is also linked to the staff, symbolizing support rather than command. The staff does not threaten, it steadies. This aligns with Chamuel's role as one who supports those weakened by emotional burden. In artistic representations, Chamuel's posture is often gentle and open. His presence is depicted as calming rather than imposing, emphasizing reassurance and accessibility. Chamuel's presence is subtle and deeply personal. He does not announce himself through spectacle or fear. His influence is often experienced as a shift in emotional clarity, a sudden calm, a release of resentment, or a renewed capacity to forgive. Encounters with Chamuel are internal rather than external. He works through reflection, memory, and emotional awareness. His presence encourages honesty with oneself, making space for healing that begins within. Chamuel does not resolve conflict through force or explanation. He allows individuals to reach reconciliation organically, guided by compassion rather than obligation. His work respects emotional autonomy. Within the Archangelic Order, Chamuel serves as the guardian of the heart. His role complements the others by addressing what power, knowledge, and healing alone cannot resolve. Without love, order becomes rigid, truth becomes harsh, and healing becomes incomplete. Chamuel's work ensures that divine action does not alienate humanity from itself. He preserves empathy within judgment, tenderness within strength, and connection within transformation. Among the archangels, Chamuel stands closest to emotional reality. His role affirms that love is not secondary to divine order, it is essential to its endurance. The historical development of Chamuel differs markedly from that of archangels rooted in canonical scripture. His presence emerges not through explicit biblical narrative, but through the gradual evolution of mystical, theological, and esoteric thought. This mode of emergence is not incidental. It reflects the nature of his domain. Chamuel addresses dimensions of human experience, love, compassion, inner conflict, and reconciliation that are often explored implicitly rather than codified explicitly. His history unfolds where spiritual reflection turns inward. Chamuel's earliest identifiable roots appear within Jewish mystical traditions, particularly in strands of Kabbalistic thought that explore the emotional and ethical dimensions of divine emanation. In these systems, angels are not merely messengers or enforcers, but expressions of divine attributes interacting with creation. Chamuel becomes associated with the divine capacity for relational awareness, the ability to perceive, hold, and restore connection. Within Kabbalah, Chamuel is often linked to the sephirotic structure that governs divine qualities as they flow into the world. Though associations vary across texts, Chamuel is commonly connected to attributes involving strength tempered by compassion, discipline guided by care, and power restrained by empathy. This positioning clarifies his function. He exists where strength must not become cruelty, and where justice must not sever relationship. The reason for Chamuel's emergence within mystical tradition lies in a theological necessity. As concepts of divine justice, law, and order became more systematized, an imbalance risked forming one where obedience overshadowed compassion. Chamuel's role counterbalances this tendency. He embodies the principle that love is not opposed to discipline, but essential to its legitimacy. Without love, law becomes oppression. Without compassion, order becomes tyranny. In later Jewish angelology, Chamuel's role expands to include the restoration of harmony after conflict. He is invoked in matters of reconciliation, emotional healing, and the repair of fractured bonds. His function here is not juridical but relational. He does not determine guilt or innocence. He restores connection where separation has occurred. Christian esoteric traditions adopt and further develop Chamuel's identity during the medieval and Renaissance periods. As Christian theology increasingly engaged with questions of inner spirituality, emotional devotion, and personal relationship with the divine, figures like Chamuel gained prominence. He became associated with divine love as an active force, one that seeks, recovers, and reunites, rather than merely forgives from a distance. In these traditions, Chamuel is sometimes portrayed as the angel who helps humanity rediscover what has been lost through fear, shame, or self-alienation. This includes lost faith, lost purpose, and lost self-worth. His work emphasizes recovery rather than absolution. Humanity is not merely pardoned, it is reconnected. The reason for Chamuel's creation becomes clearer within this context. Free will, while essential to love, introduces the possibility of rupture between individuals, within communities, and between humanity and the divine. Chamuel exists because love, once broken, requires intentional restoration. He represents the divine commitment to relationship, even when that relationship has been strained or damaged. Unlike archangels whose creation responds to rebellion, ignorance, or suffering, Chamuel responds to disconnection. His existence acknowledges that alienation is not merely a social or psychological problem, but a spiritual one. Without love, understanding becomes sterile and power becomes destructive. Chamuel ensures that divine interaction with humanity remains relational rather than transactional. In Christian devotional practice, Chamuel becomes associated with peace, forgiveness, and the calming of inner turmoil. He is invoked during moments of grief, conflict, and emotional exhaustion. This devotional role reflects an understanding of spirituality as lived experience rather than abstract doctrine. Chamuel's influence is felt where doctrine alone cannot heal. Islamic tradition does not explicitly name Chamuel as an archangel in the same way it names Jibril or Mikhail. However, the principles Chamuel embodies, compassion, Rahma, mercy, reconciliation, and inner peace, are central to Islamic theology. Angels in Islam are often described as agents of mercy and order, and the divine attribute of compassion permeates Islamic understanding of God's relationship with humanity. Chamuel's function aligns conceptually with this emphasis, even if not personified under the same name. In Islamic spirituality, especially within Sufi traditions, love is understood as the path toward divine closeness. The process of purifying the heart, dissolving ego, and restoring harmony mirrors Chamuel's core domain. While not identified as a named angel, the role he represents remains present. In later Western esoteric systems, Chamuel becomes increasingly associated with emotional intelligence, self-acceptance, and the healing of internal division. He is invoked as a guide for those seeking peace rather than power, reconciliation rather than victory. This evolution reflects a cultural shift toward valuing emotional wholeness as a spiritual goal. Across religions and traditions, Chamuel's identity remains consistent in essence, even as form varies. In Jewish mysticism, he is the harmonizer of divine attributes. In Christian esotericism, he is the restorer of love and peace. In Islamic thought, his function resonates through the primacy of mercy and compassion. In modern spiritual systems, he becomes the archetype of emotional healing and relational restoration. These perspectives converge on a shared truth. Creation is sustained not only by power, knowledge, or law, but by love that actively repairs what freedom can fracture. Chamuel exists because relationship is central to existence. Without him, order might persist, but connection would not. At the end of his historical arc, Chamuel stands as the archangel who ensures that divine authority remains compassionate, that justice remains humane, and that love remains possible even after loss. Chapter 6. Archangel Jophiel. Jophiel occupies a distinct place among the archangels as the embodiment of beauty, perception, and enlightened understanding. Where other archangels engage directly with conflict, revelation, healing, or emotional repair, Jophiel governs the way reality is perceived and interpreted. Her domain is not external action, but internal vision, the capacity to recognize harmony, meaning, and divine order within the world and within thought itself. The name Jophiel is commonly derived from the Hebrew Yophiel or Jophiel, meaning beauty of God. This beauty is not merely aesthetic. It refers to the alignment of form, truth, and purpose. In Jophiel's context, beauty is the visible expression of divine order. It is what appears when chaos is arranged, when understanding replaces confusion, and when perception becomes clear. Jophiel is traditionally associated with illumination of the mind rather than proclamation or instruction. She does not announce truths as Gabriel does, nor does she explain systems as Uriel does. Instead, she refines perception so that truth becomes recognizable. Her role assumes that understanding is not only a matter of information, but of orientation, how the mind is trained to see. The defining quality of Jophiel is clarity of perception. She governs the ability to see things as they truly are, unclouded by pride, fear, or distortion. This clarity is intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. Jophiel refines thought, bringing coherence where the mind has become scattered or overwhelmed. Closely tied to this is beauty understood as harmony. Jophiel's beauty is not decorative, it is structural. She aligns thoughts, values, and intentions into patterns that reflect divine order. Where confusion fragments understanding, Jophiel restores symmetry. Another central quality is enlightenment. Jophiel is associated with awakening awareness, moments when insight arises naturally rather than through effort. This enlightenment does not arrive as revelation imposed from above, but as recognition emerging from within. Jophiel also embodies grace. Her influence is gentle and elevating. She does not confront the mind harshly or dismantle it through force. Instead, she invites refinement. Her grace allows transformation without violence to identity. Jophiel's primary role is that of educator, of perception. She shapes how truth is apprehended rather than what truth is declared. Her work involves reorganizing thought patterns, dissolving destructive mental habits, and encouraging insight that leads to wisdom. One of her key functions is the illumination of wisdom through beauty. She helps individuals recognize meaning in complexity, coherence in diversity, and order in apparent chaos. Through this process, beauty becomes a pathway to understanding rather than mere appreciation. Jophiel is also associated with the cultivation of creativity and learning. Artists, scholars, philosophers, and seekers of knowledge are traditionally linked to her influence. She inspires not by supplying content, but by aligning the mind toward receptivity and coherence. Another aspect of her role involves preservation of sacred knowledge. Jophiel is sometimes described as a guardian of wisdom that must be approached with humility. She does not conceal truth arbitrarily. She ensures that knowledge is received with the proper disposition. Jophiel's symbols consistently emphasize enlightenment and refinement. She is often depicted with a flame or radiant light, representing illumination of the intellect. This light is not consuming fire, but steady brilliance that reveals form and pattern. The scroll or book is another frequent attribute, symbolizing learning, contemplation, and accumulated wisdom. Unlike Gabriel's scroll of announcement or Uriel's scroll of cosmic order, Jophiel's book represents cultivated understanding and insight gained through reflection. She is also associated with the lotus or flower, symbols of beauty emerging from complexity. These images emphasize transformation through growth rather than force. In artistic representations, Jophiel's posture is often serene and upright, conveying calm attentiveness. Her presence suggests focus, balance, and mental clarity. Jophiel's presence is subtle yet transformative. She does not overwhelm the senses or demand immediate change. Instead, her influence is experienced as a gradual shift in perspective. Thoughts become ordered, emotions stabilize, and perception sharpens. Her presence encourages mindfulness and discernment. Under her influence, individuals become more aware of how they think, not just what they think. This meta-awareness allows refinement of judgment and intention. Encounters with Jophiel often feel quiet and elevating. They are marked by insight rather than instruction, inspiration rather than command. Her presence affirms that understanding can be beautiful and that beauty itself can teach. Within the archangelic order, Jophiel serves as the refiner of awareness. She complements Uriel's illumination by shaping how that light is received. Without Jophiel, knowledge may remain harsh or inaccessible. With her, understanding becomes integrated and humane. She balances Michael's severity with grace, Gabriel's proclamation with insight, Raphael's healing with perspective, and Chamuel's compassion with clarity. Her role ensures that divine truth is not only known, but appreciated and embodied. Among the archangels, Jophiel stands as the guardian of beauty, as wisdom, reminding creation that truth, when properly seen, is harmonious. The historical development of Jophiel differs significantly from that of archangels, whose identities are anchored in canonical scripture. Jophiel emerges primarily through interpretive, mystical, and theological traditions that focus on perception, wisdom, and the inner life of the human mind. Her history is not defined by singular dramatic events, but by enduring influence, an influence that shapes how divine truth is recognized, rather than how it is delivered or enforced. Jophiel's earliest associations appear within Jewish mystical thought, where angels are understood not only as beings, but as expressions of divine attributes interacting with creation. In these traditions, wisdom and beauty are inseparable. Beauty is not ornamentation. It is evidence of alignment with divine order. Jophiel becomes associated with this principle, the visible harmony that arises when truth is rightly perceived. In some Jewish mystical interpretations, Jophiel is linked to the guardianship of sacred knowledge following humanity's expulsion from Eden. While this association is symbolic rather than explicitly textual, it reflects a consistent theological theme. Once knowledge is gained, innocence cannot be restored, but wisdom must be cultivated. Jophiel's role, in this context, is not to bar access permanently, but to ensure that knowledge is approached with humility, discernment, and reverence. This association positions Jophiel as a guardian of right perception. Knowledge without wisdom leads to arrogance. Beauty without truth leads to illusion. Jophiel exists to prevent both outcomes. Her history unfolds wherever humanity struggles, not with ignorance, but with distorted understanding. As Christian theological reflection expanded during the medieval period, Jophiel gained prominence in esoteric and devotional writings. Scholars and mystics began to emphasize the role of the intellect in spiritual life, not as a rival to faith, but as its companion. Jophiel became associated with enlightened thought, contemplative prayer, and the refinement of judgment. In these traditions, Jophiel is often invoked as a guide for scholars, theologians, and artists. Her influence is understood as ordering the mind so that truth can be recognized intuitively rather than forced through argument. This reflects a shift in spiritual emphasis from external obedience to internal alignment. Jophiel's role responds directly to this shift. The reason for Jophiel's creation becomes clear within this framework. As humanity gains knowledge, complexity increases. Understanding does not automatically follow information. Without refinement of perception, knowledge fragments into confusion, pride, or despair. Jophiel exists because wisdom requires cultivation. She ensures that truth, once revealed, can be integrated rather than resisted. Jophiel's function also addresses a critical theological concern. Divine truth must remain desirable. If truth is perceived as harsh, chaotic, or alienating, it will be rejected, regardless of its validity. Beauty, in Jophiel's domain, makes truth approachable. Her presence ensures that divine order is not only correct, but compelling. In later Christian mysticism, Jophiel becomes associated with the purification of thought. She is invoked in practices aimed at overcoming destructive mental patterns, fear, arrogance, obsession, and despair. This emphasis reflects an understanding that spiritual struggle often begins in perception rather than action. Jophiel's work reshapes the inner landscape before outward change occurs. Islamic tradition does not name Jophiel explicitly as an archangel, yet her function resonates strongly with Islamic theology. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes balance, proportion, and beauty within creation as signs of divine wisdom. The act of recognizing these signs requires clarity of perception, precisely the domain Jophiel governs. In Islamic philosophy and spirituality, particularly within Sufi traditions, beauty, Jamal, is understood as a divine attribute that draws the soul toward truth. The cultivation of inner vision, refinement of character, and harmonization of intellect and heart closely parallel Jophiel's role. Though unnamed, her function persists through emphasis on aesthetic harmony as a pathway to understanding God. In Renaissance and later Western esoteric traditions, Jophiel's identity evolves further. She becomes associated with creative inspiration, artistic genius, and philosophical insight. Her role expands beyond religious contemplation into intellectual and cultural development. This reflects a growing recognition that beauty and wisdom are not confined to sacred spaces, but permeate all expressions of human creativity. Across these traditions, Jophiel's historical presence remains consistent in purpose. In Jewish mysticism, she safeguards the right use of knowledge. In Christian esotericism, she refines intellect and perception. In Islamic spirituality, her function echoes through the pursuit of balance, beauty, and recognition of divine signs. In later thought, she becomes the archetype of enlightened awareness. These perspectives converge on a single principle. Understanding is shaped as much by perception as by information. Jophiel exists because truth, left unrefined, can become distortion. She ensures that knowledge leads to wisdom, that clarity replaces confusion, and that beauty reveals rather than conceals reality. At the end of her historical arc, Jophiel stands as the archangel who guards not doctrine, law, or action, but vision itself. Her creation affirms that how humanity sees determines how it lives, and that divine truth, when rightly perceived, is not only true, but beautiful. Chapter 7. Archangel Zadkiel. Zadkiel stands among the archangels as the embodiment of mercy, forgiveness, and compassionate restraint. Where other archangels confront, reveal, heal, or illuminate, Zadkiel intervenes at the precise moment when justice threatens to become irreversible. His domain is not the suspension of law, but its tempering. He represents the divine willingness to offer transformation instead of final condemnation. The name Zadkiel derives from the Hebrew tzadkiel, commonly interpreted as righteousness of God or justice of God. At first glance, this meaning appears paradoxical for an angel associated with mercy. Yet this paradox defines Zadkiel's nature. In his domain, righteousness is not expressed through punishment alone, but through the preservation of possibility. Justice, when balanced by mercy, becomes restorative rather than destructive. Zadkiel's presence emerges where judgment is imminent, but not yet sealed. He is not an advocate for wrongdoing, nor a negator of consequence. Instead, he represents the divine capacity to pause, reconsider, and allow space for repentance, growth, and moral realignment. The defining quality of Zadkiel is mercy, understood not as leniency, but as compassionate discernment. His mercy does not deny wrongdoing. It acknowledges it fully, while refusing to reduce the individual to their failure. This form of mercy preserves dignity, even in judgment. Closely connected to mercy is forgiveness. Zadkiel governs the release of guilt and the possibility of renewal. Forgiveness, in his domain, is not forgetfulness, but transformation. It allows the past to inform growth, rather than imprison the future. Another essential quality is restraint. Zadkiel embodies the power to withhold force. Where Michael acts decisively and Uriel clarifies consequence, Zadkiel delays finality. His restraint is active, not passive. It is a deliberate act of preservation. Zadkiel also represents compassionate strength. His influence does not weaken justice. It humanizes it. He ensures that judgment remains aligned with purpose, rather than emotion, retribution, or finality. Zadkiel's primary role is that of intercessor at the threshold of judgment. His work occurs at critical moments when consequences are deserved, but redemption remains possible. He does not erase accountability. He creates the conditions for change. One of Zadkiel's central functions is mitigation of wrath. In theological traditions, divine anger is not irrational emotion, but the response of order to violation. Zadkiel tempers this response, ensuring that correction does not eclipse compassion. He embodies the principle that justice without mercy becomes tyranny. Zadkiel is also associated with emotional and spiritual release. He assists individuals burdened by guilt, shame, or self-condemnation. His influence allows acceptance of responsibility without collapse into despair. This balance enables genuine repentance rather than fear-driven compliance. Another aspect of Zadkiel's work involves facilitating forgiveness, both toward others and toward oneself. He supports reconciliation not by erasing harm, but by preventing harm from becoming identity. Zadkiel's symbols consistently emphasize restraint and compassion. He is often depicted holding a dagger or knife, lowered or withdrawn, representing violence halted before completion. This imagery signifies mercy enacted at the decisive moment. The violet or purple light, frequently associated with Zadkiel, symbolizes transformation, dignity, and spiritual renewal. This color reflects the blending of severity and compassion, authority and grace. Zadkiel is also linked to open hands or broken chains, representing release from guilt, cycles of punishment, and internal bondage. These symbols emphasize freedom through responsibility rather than denial. In artistic portrayals, Zadkiel's posture is calm and attentive. He is shown neither advancing nor retreating, but holding space, reflecting his role as one who pauses the inevitable to allow possibility. Zadkiel's presence is solemn and deeply stabilizing. Encounters with him are often experienced as moments of relief, not from consequence, but from despair. His influence allows individuals to breathe again under the weight of judgment. He does not comfort through denial. Instead, he affirms accountability while restoring hope. His presence encourages honesty without self-destruction. Zadkiel works quietly. His interventions are rarely dramatic. They manifest as moments when punishment is stayed, when reconciliation becomes possible, or when self-forgiveness emerges unexpectedly. Within the archangelic order, Zadkiel serves as the balancer of justice and compassion. He stands between Michael's enforcement and Raphael's healing, ensuring that correction leads to restoration rather than ruin. Without Zadkiel, justice risks becoming absolute and irreversible. With him, justice remains purposeful and humane. Zadkiel's role affirms a foundational principle across spiritual traditions. Righteousness is incomplete without mercy. The historical identity of Zadkiel emerges at the intersection of justice and mercy, a place where divine authority confronts its own capacity for restraint. Unlike archangels whose origins are tied to explicit scriptural narratives or dramatic cosmic roles, Zadkiel's presence develops through interpretive tradition, mystical theology, and moral reflection. His history is less about events and more about moments when judgment is deserved, yet not final, when consequence is justified, yet not irrevocable. Zadkiel's earliest roots can be traced to Jewish, mystical, and interpretive traditions, where angels are understood as agents of divine attributes rather than independent actors. In this framework, Zadkiel becomes associated with tzedek righteousness, not as rigid legality, but as justice aligned with divine intention. This distinction is crucial. Righteousness, in this sense, does not demand maximum punishment, but optimal correction. Zadkiel embodies this corrective principle. One of the most enduring traditions associated with Zadkiel is his connection to the binding of Isaac. In this account, Abraham's obedience reaches a critical threshold, one where devotion appears to demand irreversible sacrifice. It is at this moment that intervention occurs. Later mystical interpretations identify Zadkiel as the angel who stays Abraham's hand, halting the act before completion. This moment becomes foundational to Zadkiel's identity. Mercy does not negate obedience. It reveals its true purpose. The test was never meant to end in destruction, but in demonstration of trust. This narrative establishes Zadkiel as the angel of the interrupted act, the force that intervenes when justice, left unchecked, would exceed its intended aim. His presence does not invalidate the seriousness of moral demand. It clarifies it. Obedience is affirmed, but destruction is refused. As Jewish thought evolved, particularly within Kabbalistic systems, Zadkiel became associated with specific channels of divine emanation, linked to kindness, benevolence, and expansive mercy. Within these systems, divine attributes are balanced forces. Severity without kindness fractures creation. Kindness without severity dissolves order. Zadkiel functions as the harmonizer, ensuring that justice remains life-giving rather than annihilating. The reason for Zadkiel's creation becomes evident within this balance. Free will introduces moral failure as a real possibility. Without mercy, failure would lead only to elimination. Zadkiel exists because divine purpose requires transformation, not erasure. His presence ensures that judgment remains a doorway rather than a wall. In early Christian theological reflection, Zadkiel's identity is absorbed into broader discussions of grace, forgiveness, and redemption. While not named explicitly in canonical texts, the function he represents becomes central to Christian moral theology. The idea that mercy triumphs over judgment, that repentance opens the way to renewal, mirrors Zadkiel's essential role. In medieval Christian mysticism, Zadkiel is increasingly invoked as the angel who assists in the release of guilt and the transformation of conscience. He becomes associated with penitence that restores rather than humiliates. His role supports the belief that divine justice is not satisfied by suffering alone, but by changed hearts. This period also deepens Zadkiel's association with forgiveness, not only divine forgiveness, but human forgiveness. He is understood as guiding individuals toward the difficult act of releasing resentment and self-condemnation. This expansion reflects a growing awareness that mercy must operate horizontally between people, not only vertically between humanity and God. The theological necessity of Zadkiel becomes even clearer in this context. Law can define wrongdoing, and punishment can deter it, but neither can heal it. Zadkiel exists to complete the moral arc, to ensure that accountability leads to growth rather than despair. Without him, justice would terminate relationship. With him, justice restores it. In Islamic tradition, Zadkiel does not appear as a named archangel, yet the principle he embodies is central to Islamic theology. Mercy Rama is one of the most emphasized attributes of God, invoked repeatedly as foundational to divine identity. Judgment exists, but it is always framed within mercy. Repentance, Tawbah, is not only possible but encouraged, even expected. Angels in Islam are understood as agents of divine will who operate within this merciful framework. While Zadkiel is not personified by name, his function is evident wherever divine mercy intervenes to allow repentance before final judgment. The idea that God's mercy precedes his wrath resonates directly with Zadkiel's domain. In Sufi spirituality, this principle becomes deeply experiential. The process of spiritual growth is understood as a cycle of error, awareness, repentance, and return. Mercy is not incidental. It is the engine of transformation. Zadkiel's role aligns seamlessly with this understanding, even without explicit identification. In later Western esoteric and mystical traditions, Zadkiel's identity becomes more pronounced. He is associated with transformation, alchemical change, and the transmutation of guilt into wisdom. The violet or purple symbolism linked to him reflects this process, combining severity and compassion into spiritual renewal. These traditions emphasize that mercy is not weakness. It is power exercised inwardly rather than outwardly. Zadkiel's restraint is portrayed as strength under control, the highest form of authority. This perspective reframes mercy as an act of courage rather than concession. Across religious traditions, Zadkiel's function remains remarkably consistent, despite differences in language and theology. In Jewish mysticism, he is the restrainer of severity. In Christian thought, he is reflected in doctrines of grace and forgiveness. In Islamic theology, his principle is present in the primacy of mercy and repentance. In esoteric systems, he becomes the archetype of transformation through compassion. These perspectives converge on a shared truth. Justice that cannot pause becomes destruction. Zadkiel exists because divine order is not sustained by punishment alone, but by the possibility of change. His presence affirms that moral failure does not exhaust divine patience, and that correction is meaningful only when renewal remains possible. Zadkiel's history reveals a profound theological insight. Creation is not governed solely by law, nor preserved solely by power. It is sustained by mercy that intervenes at the final moment, by compassion that refuses to abandon even the guilty, and by restraint that transforms judgment into redemption. In the architecture of the archangels, Zadkiel stands as the final safeguard, not against chaos, ignorance, illness, confusion, or alienation, but against despair. He ensures that no sentence is pronounced without the possibility of return, and no judgment rendered without the offer of mercy.